The Giants miss an opportunity against the Cardinals. Should they bring back Dominic Smith next season? And we take a look at the wild card standings. That's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics, with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area. I live in Sacramento now, where I host a show on Sacktown Sports 1140, the Alan Stiles Show, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. Be sure to check that out, as well as emceeing Sacramento Rivercats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team that I've been a fan of all my life. We have today a weekend recap, Dominic Smith and his fit next season, and we take a look at the wild card standings. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Okay, a weekend of missed opportunities. Depending on how the next 19 games go, this past weekend could be known as the weekend of missed opportunities. We knew the Giants weren't going to win every game, but up 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth, and to end up giving up a walk-off on a day where the Mets actually lose, it's just tough sledding. Another solid start from Verlander that was wasted. We'll get into Justin Verlander a little bit later here. This is the first series that the Giants have lost in over 2 weeks, and it was a really good run. But as far as the Giants and where they're at right now, I'm not really that upset. This is just what happens when you're operating with a razor-thin margin of error. You have to dang near be perfect and capitalize on every opportunity, and the Giants weren't able to do that. They had another opportunity yesterday. Jung Hoo Lee had a couple chances to be the hero, and he wasn't able to capitalize. But as a team, they weren't able to capitalize. And, they hoped that they could grab another and be within 3 games with that tiebreaker of the Mets, but they're going to have to host the D-backs this week, who are also 7-3 in their last 10 games. So it's not going to be easy. This is what we talked about. They had this all started against the best team in baseball with the Brewers. Then after that, they had the Cubs, who've been playing really well. Then things got a bit easier when you had the Orioles and the Rockies, and they don't have that anymore. This was a really confusing series, I would say. So we'll talk about the D-backs a little bit later, but a bit of a confusing series because I think the Giants didn't play poorly. I actually would say that they played pretty well, as far as the positives. Look, that was a lot of really good baseball. The Giants played well for probably 80% of that series, and they lost the series. And that type of stuff happens. They've been on the right side of it for the last couple weeks here, and it tends to even itself out more often than not. I think we'll know more about whether or not this really hot stretch for the Giants is done tomorrow night at about 6:45 when they do take on that team from Arizona. Saturday's game did give us an opportunity to have a conversation I didn't think needed to be had, but it involved not Justin Verlander specifically, but Justin Verlander's brother. Now, before I get into what Ben Verlander had to say, I got to be honest with all of you. Back in the day, Ben Verlander went to Old Dominion, and we did play each other when I was at Temple University. And he was really good, man. I can't even lie. He was definitely a baller, obviously not his brother, but he was really good in his own right. So with that being said, I don't know that when I see Ben Verlander say stuff, especially when it's about the San Francisco Giants, if I'm as objective as I probably should be. And he had this to say after that loss on Saturday night. He says, "And that, my friends, is why you don't trade away your 2 highest leverage relievers when you're still in it. The Giants just blew an opportunity to move within 3 games of a playoff spot and Justin's 266th win. He should legit be at 270 or more wins right now." So again, Ben Verlander is here because of his brother, right? Ben Verlander was not talking about the Giants at all prior to this. I know he's an analyst for Fox, I believe, but he never was talking about the Giants before his brother was there. He's here because his brother is here. And really, he just pops in, it feels like once a month or whenever the Giants get hot to say something. He spends a lot of his time talking about the Smurfs and Shohei Ohtani. So I did chime back in and I just said, look, man, we understand that you're here for your brother. You don't have to chime in once a month and give takes, because the reality is, in what he's saying right now, let's think about it. During that stretch, who's been one of the hottest hitters? Drew Gilbert. How did the Giants acquire Drew Gilbert? In that Mets trade. And Camilo Doval, the Yankees are ready to send him back to San Francisco, even though I don't think the Giants would want him. The Giants had an all-star reliever in Randy Rodriguez who ended up needing Tommy John. That had nothing to do with the trades that they made at that time when they thought the season was done. So Ryan Walker had a tough go. You know, as soon as he got out there, something just didn't look right. You give up 3 runs, you give up the walk-off, and that's brutal stuff. But Randy Rodriguez was essentially the closer. It wasn't even Camilo Doval, right? And they had to move on from Camilo Doval. They were happy to move on from Camilo Doval because it just hadn't worked out. He essentially has had the yips, and he seems to have taken those yips to New York. And I wish Camilo Doval all the best. But I had to stand up for just the Giants org in general, because this idea, if you knew how bad they were playing, you would know that Buster had an opportunity to get some pieces back. That's exactly what he did. Jesus Rodriguez is now a top 20 prospect in the Giants organization when they really needed a catching prospect at that time. We already talked about Drew Gilbert. Blade Tidwell, everybody knows that I'm really high on him. He's looked great in Sacramento. He had some shoulder stuff, so we're not going to see him this season. Those are just some of the guys that they acquired, and we've already seen some of the pitching aspects as well. Had to say something. No harm, no foul. If Verlander gets re-signed, maybe we'll hear more from Ben, but I'm sure if he doesn't and he moves on, we won't have to deal with Ben and his uninformed takes anymore. So that was kind of the fun drama I wanted to fill everybody in on this past weekend, because I was just already salty, right? You hop on social media and then you're already mad that the Giants blew this, and now you have to look at a take that just doesn't really make a ton of sense. If Camilo Doval was just absolutely ridiculous, the Tyler Rogers thing is probably the best argument, but again, Drew Gilbert is essentially the 4th outfielder right now. You can make that argument, right? And it's kind of a hybrid because he's really platooning with Luis Matos. And the Giants, they did need another pitching prospect, and that's what they have in Blade Tidwell. So had to fill y'all in on that drama, for lack of a better term, if you will. But, at the end of the day, the Giants had a huge opportunity, and they missed out. And they missed out twice. And I guess the positive thing you could say is at least the Mets did lose, because this thing would be completely over if the Mets win those 2 games. And I would say even if the Mets had found a way to win yesterday, this thing would have been in a completely tougher spot. But the Giants are still kind of hanging in there, and we'll discuss what the Mets have coming up and what some of these other teams have coming up in the last segment. When we return, let's talk about somebody that has become a fan favorite and whether or not I think there's room for him on the roster next season. We got Dominic Smith. Don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. I've been reaching for my new favorite jacket almost every day, my Doer jacket. I love Doer jackets and jeans because the jeans are made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks away moisture. Keeps you cool and comfortable as temperatures change. Great for any season. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, the best of both worlds. There's a reason why they call them the world's most comfortable pants. But don't take our word for it. Go try on a pair yourself. Doer just opened a store right here in Hayes Valley so you can feel the difference firsthand. Go check them out at 567 Hayes Street. Mention our promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order. Or check them out online at shopduer.com/LockedOnSF for 15% off. That's shopduer.com/LockedOnSF. Today's player profile is on Dominic Smith. So this is kind of a different player profile. We're not necessarily giving an origin story, just more so want to talk about Dominic Smith and his fit going into next season because it's a really great story. And I think a lot of fans are happy about what we've seen from Dominic Smith. So the question now is how he fits going into next season. Dominic Smith has quietly become one of the most interesting storylines for the Giants this season. Brought in mid-year, Smith has delivered steady offense and strong defense at first base, reminding people of the talent that once made him a highly regarded prospect. He's hitting around 292, 343, 417 with solid on-base skills. And over his last couple weeks, he's been especially hot with some extra base power. He even added that very memorable splash hit into McCovey Cove, a highlight moment that has made him even more of a fan favorite. But beyond the numbers, Smith has brought a veteran presence and versatility, willing to shift roles in the infield and even in the outfield if needed. He's shown he can still be a valuable contributor on a playoff caliber roster. But here's the ultimate question. Is there room for him in San Francisco next season? The Giants roster is pretty complicated. They got Devers, who can play first or DH. Obviously, Bryce Eldridge is on the way, and he's pushing hard for a future role at that position. There is a log jam on the right side of the field, and that's where Dominic Smith does profile best. I know I mentioned the outfield, but that there's a log jam with the corner outfielders too. So with him going to free agency, the team kind of will have to figure out how to justify a new deal for him. Personally, I'm just not sure whether or not the Giants would want to bring him back. And even if they do want to bring him back, I think he'll have more opportunities in other organizations where, you know, he'll be able to platoon with someone or essentially be a starter in some places to kick off the next season, whether it's at first or DH. In San Francisco, he'll essentially be a third wheel. I know DH is different than playing a position, and Rafi Devers has made that clear. And I think a lot of players actually feel like that. I know personally, I always would have a lot more pressure on myself as a DH because if you don't hit, you've literally helped your team do absolutely nothing. Drew Gilbert, I think, is a great example of that, making some good plays in the outfield, and it kind of keeps his confidence up. Not that Drew Gilbert's ever not confident, but it keeps your confidence up as you get to the plate. And if you're not able to do that and all you're doing is sitting, waiting an hour in between at bats, it's just, it's different. It's a different mental makeup when you are only there to do one thing, and that's to hit. But as far as DH is concerned, I'm just not sure that those at bats need to go to Dominic Smith as well as he's played. This is more of a future play for me, right? I like Dominic Smith. I think he's played well, but I'm more so in the development conversation or giving those at-bats to somebody that you're paying a lot of money to. If Bryce Eldridge comes up, you want him at first. Devers could DH. Honestly, I think Devers is a better first baseman right now. And I told y'all this last week when it comes to Bryce Eldridge. He's still working over there at first base. Devers is just a better infielder. So he's profiled right now as a better first baseman. Bryce will get there. but that would be Bryce. Then if you're telling me, okay, well, Devers is going to play first, and yeah, I'd rather have Bryce Eldridge take those at bats than Dominic Smith. And I think he's going to have other options as a free agent. I think he's going to have other options, and he deserves those other options. He's played really well, but every time he kind of does this, people will reach out and we got to bring Dominic Smith back. And he is a certified knock getter. That dude gets knocks. That's what he does. He's a hitter. We remember him from back in the day on other teams, and not that far back in the day, but the dude gets knocks. There's no doubt about it. To me, I think what he's shown us would have been best served for a playoff run this season. Right? Giants have done this before with guys that have played a year, 2 years, something like that. You get the most out of them, and then you say, okay, thank you, and they move on. That's where I am with Dominic Smith. I'm just not sure how you bring him back with the huge logjam that you have. And you can let me know in the comments, am I missing something? But you have a Devers who's got to play first or DH. And the only argument I would say is if Bryce isn't ready yet, you could at least bring Dominic Smith back to the start of the season and then look to move him once Bryce Eldridge is ready. But if Bryce Eldridge starts 2026 in the big leagues, that's Dominic Smith, and they're all lefty. That's the other part, right? So that's Dominic Smith waiting for opportunities when Devers just gets a day off and when Bryce Eldridge just gets a day off, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that Dominic Smith is actually better than that. And I think that Dominic Smith actually could get more opportunity somewhere else. So that's where I'm at with the Dominic Smith conversation. I'd love to bring him back. If Bryce Eldridge didn't exist, I would for sure bring Dominic Smith back, but I would rather get Bryce Eldridge up here to start the season, have him start as a DH, right? Or if they feel like his first base defense is there now, have him be your starting first baseman. I know Devers would like to be in the field, so that's why I said Bryce could start out as DH, but I'm struggling to figure out how Dominic Smith is going to get the at-bats that he deserves. Honestly, that he deserves. So let me know. I know a lot of people are saying, Alan, bring him back. You can't just stash a guy like that on the bench, right? Not after the season he's having. I just think somebody else is going to go get him and say, hey, you can be our first baseman, or we're going to platoon you. We got a righty first baseman, so we're just going to platoon you here and see what he can do. Would have loved to have a nice playoff run with Dominic Smith. He is the classic Giants guy that is going to do something big in the playoffs if the Giants could get in. If they sneak in, he is a classic Giants guy to do something. They just got to get in. And if they don't get in, I think we will all kind of sit there and say, hey, thank you. I don't know. A lot of people do want to bring him back. Just not sure how that happens with Bryce and Devers, and Devers Devers been vocal, and I get it. He's getting paid a lot of money and it's a huge contract, but you've already moved him from third. If he wants to play first, just let him play first. There's already going to be a situation once Bryce gets up here. Dominic Smith, there's just no space for that conversation as far as I'm concerned. So thank you to Dominic Smith, but maybe I'm wrong. Last segment with you. When we return, let's take a look at the wild card standings after a tough weekend for the Giants. What did the Padres do? What did the Mets do? And the team that the Giants are going to welcome into Oracle Park tomorrow, the Diamondbacks, don't forget about them either. There's also one more team that is in a position to help the Giants, but also hurt them. We'll tell you who it is. Don't move. Locked on Giants coming up. Need a boost to power through your day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? That's where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from sugary drinks, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. I've used the caffeine toothpicks before big meetings, long drives, or even during late night game watching. Got to be grinding film out here. They give me an extra edge without the jitters. Ready to try them? Go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your your first order. That's ZipXToothpicks.com, promo code locked on. ZipX Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. Where the wild card currently sits. One more segment with you on a beautiful, beautiful Monday. It's funny because up until the 9th inning in that Saturday game, I think we all started to realistically wonder, wait, are the Giants actually ever going to lose again? And then Ryan Walker did what he did. You know, I love to separate good news and bad news. And the good news is that the Mets have the Phillies, who are really good. The bad news is that the Mets have kind of owned the Phillies. There's something like 7-2 against the Phillies this season. It's actually insane. A lot of people were asking how come we aren't talking about the Padres more. Well, look, last week they struggled, and they struggled a lot. They got the cure this weekend, known as the Colorado Rockies. And they didn't sweep the Rockies, by the way. They did lose the first one. But with the Giants losing those 2 games against the St. Louis Cardinals, the Padres are now 6 games up on the Giants, and they have that tiebreaker. The only good news is that we still don't know if the Padres can beat anyone other than the Rockies, and they have the Reds up next, and this is the team that I was teasing. They have the Reds up next, who are right there tied with the Giants for that last wild card. So this is a weird situation for the Giants fans, because the Reds can help themselves and also help the Giants, assuming the Giants take care of business, and they'll have to do it against a fellow 7-3 squad in their last 10 games, the Arizona Diamondbacks. But the Reds, I think you have to root for the Reds here just to kind of bring the Padres down to that level to a certain extent. And then obviously it would be nice for the Reds to do their job, right? Take care of the Padres, win that series. And the Giants, number one, none of this matters if the Giants don't take care of their own business, but they do their job. Once they're done with the Padres, then they can lose, right? Because then nothing is helping the Giants anymore. So you should be a Cincinnati Reds fan going into this week as they take on the Padres, and you really want to get those couple games back. It might just be too far gone with the Padres. I mean, 6 games back and a tiebreaker, so it's really 7 with 19 games left. That's 7 with 19 games left. That's why I was kind of waiting on the Padres. A lot of people, like I said, kept reaching out. Talk about the Padres more. You might be able to catch the Padres, and maybe you are, but again, it would have to be rough. This weekend really put the Giants in a tough spot against the Padres. The Diamondbacks had that random World Series run, and now nobody really knows what to do with them. I think this will tell us a lot about the Giants, because we know they still have those 7 games against the Dodgers. You have to win this series. And I know people keep joking with me, Alan, you keep saying that, then they win, and then you say that they're still okay. Well, as long as the Mets keep losing and those things match up, then they are okay. If the Mets had won those 2 games, or I would say even 1 game, the Giants would be in a much tougher spot. But the Mets dropped 2 as the Giants dropped 2. And we discussed Bob Nightingale and others talking about the Giants and, how they were going to show up. This is tough. I've been pretty tough on the Giants and Bob Melvin, and just being able to take care of business when there's actually something on the line. The reality is they didn't. You could put it on Ryan Walker. You could do whatever you want. You could put it on. This is just the type of stuff that we saw from the Giants prior to. Now, the difference is I do think the energy was there. I do think they put themselves in positions to compete and to win. They just couldn't they couldn't do the thing that they've been doing the last 2 weeks. So maybe that's just as a version of me. Maybe I'm just in a nice mood, and this is just a version of me being too afraid to say that they didn't take care of business. But if you're holding my feet to the fire, I mean, they didn't. They lost the series. The Cardinals, they went into St. Louis. You just have to win that Saturday game. You have to. That puts you at 3. Because the Sunday game, fine. You're not going to sweep everyone. The Sunday game, fine. And then you would still be up 3, or you would still be back 3, which is really 4 with that Mets tiebreaker going into 19 games left. That's really doable. And you would have put way more pressure on the Mets, who do have to take on the Phillies, who they feel confident against, but the Phillies are still a good squad. So that kind of changes everything. It does. And I know it's one game, but right now, one games matter that much. So that's where the Giants kind of sit. More importantly, before, and then they still have the 7 against the Dodgers. But more importantly, before we even get to the Smurfs, yes, the Giants could be, I guess, technically even 2 games back if they did take care of business and they did sweep. But they could also be 6 games back, and that's why I'm not saying the Padres thing is done, but 6 games with 19 left. I don't know, man. That seems pretty difficult to accomplish. So you feel good about it only because the Mets didn't take care of business. And as far as the Padres are concerned, like I said, we still don't know if they're actually good against true Major League Baseball teams, because the Rockies are not that. So the Padres taking on the Reds, who have been hot, and the Mets taking on the Phillies, Giants taking on the Diamondbacks. So this is a huge week, and you better stick with us all week long, because we are here Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast, however you get your podcast, and of course on YouTube. So be sure to like and subscribe and download as well, and continue to get the word out there. Thank you so much for doing that, as much as you've done it so far. Be sure to follow us on social media at @_Styles File, Styles with an I, in case I try to pick an argument with somebody else in baseball media. That's always fun. So be sure to check us out there. Also, the Locked On Giants social media handle as well. Be sure to find that and follow us there. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day, and Locked On Giants your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB on Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.